when we talk about yogic way of living, when you speak about the food preferences, um, slowly a person moving into it starts realizing they don't need foods that are extremely rajasic in nature. Now, when I use the word rajasic, it means something that provides you too much of a spike in energy. That includes your meat, that includes strong spices, that includes a lot of indulgent food, heavier food, which then starts becoming tamasic. So the idea of yogic food has pretty much been around sattvic food. Whatever you do on the mat, you start with movement. Like even in yoga, it's a very beautiful way we say that you move from effort to effortlessness. So from movement, you move to stillness. All of the effort that you require initially, that's necessary. All the movement that you do is necessary to channelize the energy in the body. And after that, you come to a space of stillness. So all the movement is not supposed to just make you go crazy even more. It's supposed to get you all here centered. Till you don't get into the state of being centered, are you really practicing yoga? No, you're just moving. You could be doing gymnastics for, all I know, but it's not yoga.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special segment of One People on the occasion of World Yoga Day. This year's theme is Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It signifies one earth, one people with one future. How apt. And today I have a very special guest on board with us. She not only agreed to do this at a very short notice, but she is also excellent at what she does. She's a professional and a trainer who's been practicing yoga for over 8 years. She has trained over 10,000 individuals across the globe. She hosts various retreats and does amazing workshops. She's also a celebrity yoga trainer, and I am so very happy to welcome Nishtha Bijlani on board with me today. Hi, Nishtha. It's such a great pleasure to have you on One People. Thank you for agreeing to do this on such a short notice, and I am so, so grateful to you for that. So before we proceed, Nishtha, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Just tell me a little bit about what you do, how you got into yoga, a little bit about your journey.
Thank you for having me, Rakshita. I'm glad we're able to do this and have this conversation on short notice, but it's lovely talking to you. So to just tell you a little bit about me, my background. So I'm a yoga teacher and wellness counselor. I've been doing this for over 8 to 9 years now. But I wasn't always into yoga, and that was never the plan. My background is in media studies. And I could have never planned that I could have taken on this journey. That's something I always say, that yoga chose me. I could have never decided to take it up by myself. It was a series of, quitting jobs, not realizing what's happening, where do I really belong, to actually chance upon yoga in such a way that it literally, supported me, took me in. And here I stand today in front of you to be able to tell you this story and have this conversation with you. So it's been a very eventful journey.
But share a little bit about that. How did you get into yoga?
So I was working in, corporate events, PR, media. That was my space of work. And, it's one thing to actually study the subject and another to actually work in that. And so it's like, at some point, I felt so hit by reality that I realized that this is not something that I'm cut out for, not something I enjoy doing. Yeah. I could be good at it, but doesn't mean I enjoy it. And I could not see myself doing that for the coming years. And I said, that's reason enough for me to not stick around, just because, people around you tell you that you must at least work in a company for a year or two, build your resume, etc. I just could not accept that, because it was literally feeling every part of me was, being tortured or turmoiled. It was just such a painful process to go through that. I really wanted to have a more meaningful life. And when I quit everything, I quit only to quit, not to get into yoga. Because again, yoga didn't feature. Yeah, it was simply because I know I don't like this. So it was a series of...
Sorry, quick question for the audience, because this is a very interesting part. A lot of youngsters, a lot of us people are scared to make the switch, scared to simply just shut one thing out and jump into the oblivion. So can you tell me at what age you decided to make that switch?
I was quite young. I was 21. And at that time, when you don't have anything, that is so scary that you're going to lose it all, right? I didn't have anything to lose. I was ready to take that plunge because I was ready to gain more. So I didn't have any worry of losing it all. So I think that advantage is there. Though on the flip side, that can also backfire, because when people think, oh, I'm so young, I'm only just starting out, how can I take a big step and, ruin the start of my career? So it could go either way. But I just knew that I was so sure of the things I didn't want, even if I didn't know what I wanted. And that was enough for me to get by. And I'm so happy that I took that decision, because again, today I'm living this life and I would have not known what awaited me. So it was just my mom. She once nudged me. So I was also I'm a certified counselor as well, a psychotherapist,
Yes.
and that kind of also led me to open up myself to yoga and this space. So my mom just happened to nudge me and said, you know what, there is the yoga institute in Mumbai. Why don't you go visit it and just experience it for yourself? Absolutely none of us had any plans of making it a career till the end of the program, when my teacher asked, are you sure? You haven't lifted your hand up. When I asked you who all are going to pursue this, I didn't put my hand up. And he's like, you must reconsider that. And that kind of stuck with me, like a little seed. And then it germinated. And when I started to slowly take steps towards it, I realized that I can't see myself doing anything else but this.
Very therapeutic.
Yes, it is. I started to first, of course, practice it deeply. Then I started to take on one student at a time, slowly, gradually, to understand that, well, it's just not me who feels this way. There are others also who are reciprocating really well. And it just went on from there.
What's interesting is that I also, I think I was 24 or 25. I also did my yoga certification course in Ashtanga Yoga. But then life had other plans for me, so I switched on to do many other things since then. But yeah, yoga is something which is really close to me, close to my heart. And these days also, whenever I am exercising, on the days I'm exercising, yoga, stretching is always part, though it's part of like the end ritual of the exercise, but it is always part of my life, my day, and of course me.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask, Nishtha, since you've been practicing it for 8-9 years, it's a long duration. It's almost a decade. So what are the benefits as a practitioner or as somebody who teaches the students on regular basis? You've taught over 10,000 students globally. That's a huge number. So what are the main benefits that stand out for you and, among your students?
So the thing is, first, I would like, if I just speak about myself, till I don't have my cup full, I cannot give. So whatever I teach, whatever I give outward, it's only as a result of what I am gaining and what I am giving to myself as my own personal practice, my own sadhana. Now, if I talk about benefits, it's very easy to just say the benefits that you probably see all over the internet, which is, okay, flexibility, okay, a little focus in your mind, etc. I would say that is there. It's a byproduct of the practice. But if a person is to really fully dive deep into the practice of yoga, making it a lifestyle, not just a 1-hour session on the mat, they are to gain so much that they could have not even thought. You may have entered for one reason. Okay, I'm really stiff in my body, in my mind. I want to open myself up a little. Usually people come with that thought of opening. So you realize that word open is not just limited to the body. It's the mind, it's the perspective that shifts first. So I think that is the biggest benefit, that you stop being rigid, you stop being close-minded, you start accepting, you start surrendering. And it's not, again, just the body, it's the mind. Your emotions learn to flow. You start expressing freely. You don't end up holding a lot back. And you just become so empathetic and sensitive to one and all around you. It doesn't only become about you. It then starts becoming about you and me. So I think the benefits go beyond just the bodily aspects.
I would like to ask, since you mentioned mind and since you mentioned my mental connection and bodily connection, what part of yoga establishes that body-mind connection?
Yoga as a whole. So the thing is, I guess it's a very common understanding amongst people that yoga is just the contortion and the twisting of the body that you see on the mat. That is such a small aspect called yoga asanas. And that's, again, a thing I tend to clear up very often amongst my students on all my social media platforms, for that matter, even that we are talking here today, that let's understand, when you speak yoga, most people actually are referring to asana. But when you speak yoga, it is a spiritual path. It is for your mind. It happens to be, it includes the body as a very small aspect. It uses the body for spiritual upliftment. It uses the body for mental upliftment. So body is a very small aspect. Actually, you're using it as a medium, as a tool, but it is only and only for the mental evolution and the spiritual evolution. So today it takes a while for people to understand till they don't really dive deep into the subject. What is easy for a person to understand? They see a yoga posture and they're like, okay, this is something I can do because it opens me up. They'll enroll in a class. But when they hold the hand of the teacher and they're ready to dive deeper, they will start understanding the impact it has on the subconscious mind. It is not just stretching, it's not limited to flexibility. So I think when we start changing the language, when you're speaking about the bodily practice, you say yoga asanas.
Yeah.
When you speak about yoga, yoga encompasses everything. The way you live, the values that you hold, the way you conduct yourself, the choices that you make in your life. Then it goes on to asana, it goes on to pranayam, then it goes on to meditation. All of this comes under the umbrella of yoga, not just what you do on the mat. That's a very small aspect.
I really wanted to ask, since we're talking about asanas, we're talking about pranayams, we also spoke about meditation. I feel, is it true that it's because we center our breathing while doing the moments, while doing the pranayams, and while doing the meditation? It's the breathing and just awareness of the self that acts as a gateway to all that awareness, mental and body, flexibility and awareness of something far more beyond than just us.
Absolutely. It starts with awareness, and awareness of all kinds, be it of the bodily movement, be it of your breath. It is that state of presence, that being in the very now, is what awareness is. When you speak, today we see all these words which have become very popular terms of awareness and mindfulness, especially mindfulness.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't have any fancy meaning. All it means is to be absolutely available in this moment. As you and I are talking, in this very, very moment that you and I are talking, we're so absorbed and involved.
Yeah.
We are speaking very mindfully. Okay. So that even applies to the practice. So when a person is practicing, what I would say differentiates a regular yoga asana practice to any other form of exercise, workout, is that this becomes a work in. And how does it become a work in? Because you are learning to develop and heighten your sense of awareness. So for example, a person is moving their body, doing, for example, Surya Namaskars, just to give you an example.
Yeah.
When you lift your arm up, when you let your body fold, etc., you're so fully absorbed in that movement. It may start as an outward, external absorption of information. Then it starts becoming an inward observation. You start then combining breath and movement. And then all of this marries together and you start understanding, wow. When a person is left feeling wow, that is only because you are now aware. So when you even start paying attention to your breath was happening anyway. Does it become any different? It only becomes different is because now you're paying attention to it. When there is lack of attention, life
it
goes
becomes
on.
more synchronized with our body as well, especially when we're doing yoga. The breath work along with the yoga asanas, just otherwise when we're exercising, doing any other form of exercise, say running, weightlifting and all, breath is not ever, put so much focus in.
Yeah.
However, yoga, if your asanas only will be wrong if you're not doing the right breath work, if you're not breathing in while going up and breathing out while coming down or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Yeah.
And synchronizing the breath first with the body is an initial step that helps a lot. So when you are, say, for example, stretching open the body, we apply an inhalation. When you're going in a forward fold or a twist, you apply an exhalation. So once a person starts understanding to do this, only then they are ready for the next step, which is pranayam. Pranayam, which may look very simple, oh, just breathing exercises, is actually very advanced. So till a person doesn't have breath awareness, they don't even know what is their breath like in this very moment, pranayam is something that should wait. So it starts just coming with momentary breath awareness. Then a person can move into the next step. Yeah.
Agreed. So what are the basic initial steps any beginner can take to start practicing yoga?
The very first thing I tell anybody who will ask me that question is, please look for a good teacher. I would not recommend as a beginner to find videos online and just look and imitate, because then it becomes imitation. The teacher has no idea what you're doing. It's a one-sided approach, and you could be thinking you've done the best, but you may have been going wrong on many levels. Injuries happen as a result, and it's so easy to skip and forward it, right? You can always skip and forward and
something which is not
miss out the essence. Correct. And hence, I'd always tell, whether it's online today, online has opened us to a lot of teachers and a lot more opportunities. Find a teacher online or offline, go practice with the teacher, remain in guidance with the teacher. Yoga needs to be understood as a teacher-student relation, a guru-shishya. That's how it's always been. Today, it's become a pick and choose, select and skip. Yeah, so that needs to be understood, that if you take up the practice of yoga, it should be done in the traditional way, under the guidance of a teacher. Build your practice, then you can do it on your own. Then you will not, always need to visit a class. It can start becoming your own self-practice as well after you win guidance. Correct. And then you can keep going back for guidance. Then you can even refer to videos. Then you can refer to online programs which are pre-recorded. But it's best to start with the guidance of a teacher who's able to see you, correct you, and monitor you in class.
So when you talk about that many students do it wrong, and of course as a beginner you need to have the basics in place for you to go ahead, do it by yourself and probably go ahead to the advanced levels. So Nishtha, I wanted to ask, the biggest misconceptions people have about yoga these days? What are the biggest misconceptions, and how one can try to overcome those misconceptions?
The biggest misconception, which doesn't seem to really go away too easily, is the fact that people limit the understanding of yoga to bodily movement. People limit the understanding of yoga that it is only what you do for an hour on the mat. A person who takes up yoga, if they are also, explained by the teacher, or they take the effort to actually understand the subject, they can then realize that this is lifestyle. It is a host of choices that you make, which becomes your way of living rather than something that you do, because everything then comes together. What time you rise, what is it that you eat, what time you sleep, all of this as it becomes a part of your dinacharya, the routine that you set for yourself, as a result then enhances your practice of yoga. When we say yoga, when you even just go into the more traditional meaning of yoga, it is about, coming into a state of equanimity, where you are level-minded, where you're neutral, where you are not pulled into too many extremes. So when a person starts understanding that the bigger meaning of yoga is not stretching and flexibility, they can then adopt it as a lifestyle.
Because
so
that's a big concept we all have in our minds. Yoga, asana, breathing, stretching, done.
That's it.
Do it for 1 hour, done.
Yeah. In fact, I like to always remind my students that whatever you do on the mat, you start with movement. Like even in yoga, it's a very beautiful way we say that you move from effort to effortlessness. So from movement, you move to stillness. All of the effort that you require initially, that's necessary. All the movement that you do is necessary to channelize the energy in the body. And after that, you come to a space of stillness. So all the movement is not supposed to just make you go crazy even more. It's supposed to get you all here centered. Till you don't get into the state of being centered, are you really practicing yoga? No, you're just moving. You could be doing gymnastics for, all I know, but it's not yoga. So hence, understanding that everything you do is leading you towards stillness, moving towards the practice of dhyan, slowing down, living a life with a lot more awareness. That's when the word mindfulness also starts coming in. So all of this, which a person may start as asana, is preparation for stillness. It's preparation for meditation or dhyan. That is something that people just miss out. And it's not just students, it's even a lot of teachers, yoga teachers, who end up staying, stuck in that level. True. And not even pushing their teachers further. So it's like you can avoid it, but that's the inevitable. There is no, otherwise you'll just feel like you're a little lost. You'll feel stuck, you'll feel lost. You don't realize the deeper essence of it.
So you mentioned very interesting thing. You mentioned dinacharya. You mentioned you set your entire schedule based once you start practicing yoga, because it's a complete lifestyle. So specific to this statement that you made, I really wanted to ask, are there any dietary preferences when you're doing yoga? Is it vegan diet, or you can't have, or you shouldn't have certain things? If so, what is that? Because diet in itself is such a main component of anybody's day, of anybody's body. So what are the dietary parameters when one is practicing yoga?
Yeah. So the best thing about yoga is it never puts a hard and fast on you that till you haven't been following this, you can't practice.
Okay.
It has a very welcoming approach. Anyone and everyone from every background, from any, cultural preferences is, welcome to come and adopt the practice as much as they're ready, till they're ready. So when it comes to food, slowly steady, if a person may have had eating preferences of meat, non-vegetarian food,
Yeah.
it's not saying that you must drop that till if you want to practice yoga. It's open. A person needs to get to the point when they realize I don't need it. Hence,
Yeah.
it's never putting a hard and fast on you. I
Yeah.
can give you my example. The family that I'm born in, culturally, we've always consumed meat as a part of culture, as a part of our food preferences. But that did not stop me from practicing yoga. But today, I stand in a position where it's been a couple of years that I don't eat meat. I'm a complete vegetarian. And it only happened as a natural realization, as a natural journey. And it was never a hard and fast. So I slowly got to this point. When we talk about yogic way of living, when you speak about the food preferences, um, slowly a person moving into it starts realizing they don't need foods that are extremely rajasic in nature. Now, when I use the word rajasic, it means something that provides you too much of a spike in energy. That includes your meat, that includes strong spices, that includes a lot of indulgent food, heavier food, which then starts becoming tamasic. So the idea of yogic food has pretty much been around sattvic food. Again, this is something I'm saying that a person gets to. They don't always have to be here. They eventually get to this understanding that simpler food is better for nourishment rather than richer, indulgent food, heavier food. So, if you ask me, I have now gotten to the point of eating food which is lighter, which is cleaner, devoid of spices. I don't eat strong spices. I've never been a fan of it either.
I love spicy food. I just can't do without it. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my body revolts if I have spice entering me. But it's again, you realize that one thing is a preference, and then you start realizing what you actually need. And so it's a getting to process rather than, oh, this is how you must start. You eventually get to food which is more sattvic in nature, cleaner, simpler, easier to break down, easier to digest. There is nothing else which is hard and fast. It doesn't say you must be vegan, you cannot eat non-veg, nothing. Again, it's a getting to.
So since we are talking about that yoga is not hard and fast on, say, the dietary concerns, and it's a process, it's more or less an evolution of getting to a particular stage where you realize that more simplistic food, more simplistic lifestyle is something which is ideal. And we essentially do not require a lot of, heaviness in our life. If I might call it that. Related to this, I have one question. I have seen a couple of practitioners combining yoga with other forms of exercise. Like as I mentioned at the very start, I also do that. I do my dance classes or aerobics, and I finish it off with yoga. So what are your thoughts about that? Combining yoga with other forms of exercises?
I think it's absolutely great because when we get to understanding that yoga is not just for your body and it's actually a spiritual path, it should not stop you from taking on any other form of workout. I personally also love to take on other forms of movement which complement my asana practice, which complement my yoga practice as a whole. So I feel it's great because when you take on any other workout, it remains primarily for your body. If you're learning to build muscle mass, you're working with weights, you're working with Pilates or dance or free movement, it's absolutely fine. That has in no way hinders your yoga practice, even if it's just asana. It always complements. So it's great if a person chooses to do that.
How does yoga affect overall mental well-being, which we have discussed, but also the happiness aspect of an individual? Does it have impact? I know mentally better, spiritually better, you will end up having more peace and calm in your life. But to what extent does it affect the happiness aspect in a human being?
So if I'm to say that you start practicing yoga and you start becoming a very happy person, that will be a very misleading statement. I wouldn't say that. I think when we understand that we don't have to shed away or run away from even the darker emotions of sadness, fear, anger. When we understand we don't need to run away from them, happiness is not an unachievable goal. Every emotion has a reason. Every emotion needs to be tasted. Only then will you truly understand the actual pure joy and happiness that is anyway a natural part of your being. So I can crack a joke, it can make you happy and laugh. Now that's different. But that inner happiness and the inner contentment is something we get to discover. And when I say the word discover, that means it's already within you. It's not something that is coming as an external, factor. So when a person starts practicing yoga, they start to accept. So I would use the first transformation as acceptance. Acceptance of being exactly what you are, who you are, and allowing yourself to feel everything. So that means all of the emotions. You're not trying to change your thought into, oh my God, I must be happy. That's a problem. It should not be the case. You cannot be happy 24/7. That also, the happiness that I'm talking about, which is very outward. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm always smiling. No, it's okay to feel neutral. It's okay to feel upset when there is a problem. It's okay to experience all emotions. When you are truly allowing all the emotions to be expressed, processed, that inner state of happiness, joy, and contentment then are able to come to the surface. So that is how I would tell the people who are listening to this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with this. So on that note, do you have any yoga related joke that you might want to share with us? I know I'm throwing these bombs on you, but I would really like to know if you have any joke, related to
I
yoga.
don't have
You
a
might have
joke.
any student might have cracked. No?
Okay, I mean, I don't know about a joke, but usually my students are forever uh, crying in joy or happiness, as I don't know what it might really be the case for them. But whenever I'm taking a class, I'm known for terrible counting. So I may say 10 counts, but I'm actually counting 20 or 30. I mean, it's as slow as that. So they're like, okay, Nishtha, can you just say 30 when you say 10? Because it's never going to be 10. So that's a very inside joke with me and my students because they know they are like
So you are an
really experiencing.
overperformer and an overachiever, and you want your students to be, because I'm
Not at
exactly
all.
the same. No?
Not at all. In fact, in my class, I always have this one thing that I say to them, that do as much as your body allows you to, but don't stay in the comfort zone. So every time you try to explore a little bit beyond your own set boundary.
Yeah.
So it's just that I count slowly because I have multiple inserts in the middle when I'm instructing a class. So I would say one, okay, now bend your knees. Okay, then there will be another insert, then there will be a two, and then there'll be a three. Hence they like crying in pain, but that's all.
I know where you're coming from. Our instructors, my instructor also, they try to do the same thing. And by the end of it, like, when we are hitting, say, 20s or 30s, they are still at 15. And I'll be like, okay, 3, 2, 1, done. I will just drop the ball because you can't hold a posture. I
Of
mean, yes,
course.
you're stretching, but you
Yeah.
can't hold it for like so long.
Yeah. Individual capacity, and people take their own time. So you should not stress about that. Totally.
Very true, very
Yeah.
true. So I
Yeah.
wanted to ask Nishtha if there is any person you would like to teach yoga to, a famous personality or anybody you look up to, you admire, who would that be?
Um, it's a very difficult question because the people I admire, I wouldn't want to teach them. I'd rather just be in their company and receive from them.
So practice
So,
yoga with them.
yes. In fact, there are some very lovely people present alive today, spiritual leaders who I really look up to. One of them being B.K. Shivani. Maybe you've heard of her,
Yes.
Sister Shivani. I would just love to be in her company. Just
Yeah.
being in her company, having a meaningful conversation is the practice of yoga that I would like to do with her. So that's all. That's all I would love to do with. Yeah.
Beautiful. And any fabulous destination or a place where you would like to practice yoga or probably host one of your famous retreats?
So I think our country is so blessed when it comes to nature. There is so much that we have within our own country. And I always find my heart taking me back to Himachal, Himalayas very often. So whether it is Rishikesh, whether it is moving towards Himachal, I just really love going to Uttarakhand, Himachal, specifically for the Himalayas, time and again. So I keep getting drawn back to the place. Yeah.
So India rocks.
always.
Fabulous. So, Nishtha, as we celebrate yoga and it's a World Yoga Day, so what do you think? What kind of significance does a particular day, celebration of yoga, contributes or brings to the entire practice of yoga, if at all?
I feel, yeah, I feel it's been great that our Prime Minister in 2014 decided to coin International Yoga Day and give it the due recognition it always required. You know, it's been around for 5,000, 7,000 years, but people constantly forget, the treasure they have in their own, motherland. And I feel that's very great that, we now have this day, even though yoga is not just limited to one day, because a lot of people suddenly wake up on 21st June and they decide to do yoga and then forget about it the entire year. But the idea is always to kind of just plant that seed in them, that they may then from there take it on and make it a part of their life. So I think it's great that it's there, and it's reinforcing a very important message. And it's here to stay, and it's here to only grow.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So there are so many adaptations that are happening of yoga. In the modern times, there are a lot of permutations and combinations. People from the West are trying various forms. Even in India, there are a lot of experimentation. There are things like aerial yoga and hot yoga. So what are your takes on that? I mean, are these effective or are these just fads?
They're fads. They're completely just fads. The thing with yoga is it's so beautiful in the way it is. The issue is when a person starts to find a lack in the actual practice. Is only when you think you need to modify, and when the person who is creating the fad, they feel that they want some kind of identification or ownership on the practice. Yoga exists without you and me. It exists anyway. Why do you and I have to repackage it, repurpose it, and try to sell it as something else? Why can it not just be allowed to be the way it is? It's already so rich in its essence. The issue is when we try to rise above the practice and make it something more than what it already is. It's already complete. It doesn't need anything more. Hence, it's a fad, and it can just remain a fancy workout. Adding the word yoga to it is misleading. It is reducing its value. So I don't personally practice or teach or any of that. Hopefully it goes and comes with times, and people who are real seekers will always see it. So it's just what it is, I guess. Yeah.
But I think you rightly said it's another form of a workout. You can combine 2-3 forms and have it like a workout, sweat it out, experience it, enjoy it. But it is not the pure essence of what yoga brings to us in its entirety.
Absolutely. It's not yoga. I mean, today you see there's goat yoga, dog yoga, bear yoga. I mean, what is it really, right? It's not yoga. You're just moving and, sipping on a glass of beer or playing with the dogs while you're practicing it. It's just for entertainment, I would say. That's all. It ends there. Yeah.
So on that note, I want to ask Nishtha, what according to you is the ultimate goal of yoga? What does it ultimately bring to us as human beings? You mentioned it's a 5,000-year-old practice, much more older as well. So what is its ultimate goal?
I wouldn't say that what is it according to me, because again, as a practitioner, my job is to learn and pass on the message from the original source. So if I am to tell you, at its root, what yoga is, not my opinion, but what it actually means and what it actually holds. In yoga, in the Vedic scriptures, there is a saying, dukkha nivritti. So the practice of yoga is to move beyond suffering, to release suffering. So when you may have heard the word freedom, moksha, liberation around yoga very often, right? In a spiritual context.
Yes.
What does that really mean? It just starts to mean that we start dropping a lot of the identities, labels, attachments that we have towards things, which actually are the root cause of suffering. So the path of yoga is to take you towards the state of freedom. It is a freedom from the attachments that you have, from the suffering that you have. So the bigger goal of yoga is dukkha nivritti, or releasing suffering.
Dukkha nivritti essentially means release of all the pains.
The suffering, yes.
The suffering.
Yes. The pain, suffering, you may call, yes.
Right. I think it's been very insightful, Nishtha. Thank you for taking time out for us, for One People. I truly appreciate you doing this last moment for us. So for all those who are listening, Nishtha is an expert practitioner and teacher. She's taught about over 10,000 students globally. She does various retreats and workshops, again, throughout the world, in India, in Europe. She's done it, been there at all the places. Apart from that, she specializes in Hatha Ashtanga Yoga. So go ahead. She's a content creator on Instagram. Check out her Instagram page. I will share the link in the bio in the description of this post. And if you enjoyed this podcast, do not forget to follow us and rate us. Share it with your friends and family, because yoga as a practice not only helps you live a better life, it helps you live a life which is wholesome, more meaningful, more spiritual, and connected with your own being. Till then, it's a bye from me. I'll see you next week, 10:30 a.m. on Spotify. Also, I will be uploading the video version of it on YouTube, so don't forget to check it out. Till then, bye-bye.